Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I'm Six Path Weeb, and today we're diving into something unique. Imagine Naruko with Predator-level stealth and weapons. Yeah, things are about to get intense. Quick disclaimer, this channel is all about entertainment and discussion. I don't own any of the anime footage used, all rights and credits go to their original creators and copyright holders. Alright, enough talk, let's dive in. Naruko was breathing heavily as she carried an unconscious Sasuke on her back, her body struggling from the impact of the powerful Chidori attack. Though the injury had left her winded and in pain, she managed to redirect her Rasengan just in time, knocking Sasuke into the statue of Uchiha Madara and ending the intense confrontation. Honestly, Sasuke, when we get back, I'm putting in a request for you to eat a bit healthier or train more. You're really heavy, Naruko muttered with a tired grin as she stumbled forward, determined to reach the village gates while keeping him secure on her back. As soon as Naruko entered the village, she was met with a large crowd waiting for her. For a moment, hope sparked in her chest. Maybe this time, after everything she had done to protect them, the village would see her differently. Maybe they would finally understand that she was not the creature they had feared for so long, but simply Uzumaki Naruko. Unfortunately, that hope quickly faded. Look at what she did to the Uchiha. She must be held accountable. One civilian shouted, as others echoed the sentiment, rushing forward in anger. But before they could get any closer, a shield of sand surged in front of Naruko, blocking the crowd. Gaara stood beside her, expression serious. Come, Naruko-san. I'll help you take Sasuke to the hospital and ensure your safety, Gaara said, guiding her through the sand barrier while the crowd followed at a distance, still calling out in protest. Konoha Hospital, later. Tsunade stood over Naruko's resting figure, her gaze focused on the young Kunoichi's injuries. Though she was now safely wrapped in bandages and receiving proper care, the damage done by Sasuke's technique had left Tsunade both angry and deeply concerned. She couldn't help but think about how little real guidance Naruko had received from her former teacher. Aside from a few basic techniques, Naruko had mostly been left to her own devices. The neglect from some of the academy instructors didn't help either, and it was clear to Tsunade that things needed to change going forward. At least you've shown that the necklace's curse won't stop you. You're stronger than anyone expected, Naruko, Tsunade thought quietly as she turned to leave. She had made it very clear that only she and Shizune were permitted to care for Naruko, refusing to let anyone else near the girl for now. She trusted that necklace more than many people in the village, especially after what Gaara had told her. Meanwhile, Sakura had gone to visit Sasuke. Though he had sustained a few bruises and fractures from the impact with the statue, he was stable and under sedation. His usual frown remained fixed on his face, even in sleep. Poor Sasuke. Look at him. And it's all Naruko's fault. I'll make sure she understands how serious this is, Sakura thought, gently brushing her hand against his cheek before pulling away as the door opened. Tsunade stepped in, her expression sharp as she looked over Sasuke. So here lies the great Uchiha Sasuke, in all his former glory. Still so much to learn, Tsunade said coolly, inspecting the boy's condition while ignoring the tense look Sakura gave her. Hokage-sama. Please come quickly. There's a group gathering at the hospital entrance, they're demanding action be taken against Naruko, said a nurse, one of the few who treated Naruko with kindness and fairness. Tsunade's frown deepened as she turned toward the door. That's enough. I will not tolerate this anymore, she said firmly as she marched toward the front entrance. Why couldn't they just let Naruko recover in peace? Secret council chambers, some time later. Do we have the Fire Daimyo's approval? Asked Homura as he watched Danzo give a slight nod and present an official document bearing the Fire Daimyo seal. Yes. The information we provided has allowed us to move forward without resistance. Soon, we will have access to a powerful asset that will place our village in a position of great strength among the elemental nations, Danzo replied calmly, signaling to his allies to organize a formal council meeting involving the Hokage and the clan heads to finalize their agenda. Danzo believed that soon, the village would align with his vision, and in time, others would follow. 3 days later, Hokage Tower, Council Chambers. Why have you summoned a meeting on such short notice? I have medical cases awaiting attention at the hospital, a situation involving Uchiha Sasuke that still requires resolution, and let's not forget the very girl you all tend to criticize, Naruko Uzumaki, the one who brought Sasuke back from defecting completely, said Tsunade firmly, her gaze sharp as she addressed the room. She noticed the brief flash of displeasure on some faces before they regained a composed demeanor, as though they believed they still held control over the situation. Yes, about that, Danzo interjected, speaking calmly. The fire daimyo has received troubling reports and, as a result, has officially ordered that Uzumaki Naruko be sent away from the village once she recovers. What? Tsunade's voice rose slightly in disbelief. On what grounds is this action being taken? Danzo handed her the scroll containing the directive. As she read it, her expression hardened. The listed accusations were disagreements with villagers, clashes with fellow shinobi, disregarding directives from higher-ranked ninja, suspected associations with outside forces, causing unintended damage to property, questioning the authority of the Hokage. The last claim made Tsunade smirk slightly. She could admit that Naruko had a habit of referring to her as Granny and had once or twice joked about the third Hokage being an old man, but these were hardly serious offenses. As you can see, Danzo continued smoothly, the fire daimyo believes that Naruko has not demonstrated the maturity expected of a leaf shinobi. However, the daimyo is fair. He has stated that should she show growth and discipline during her time away, she may be welcomed back and reinstated. Tsunade narrowed her eyes, clearly angered by the manipulation at play. These accusations are exaggerated. Naruko hasn't been a threat to anyone. If anything, others have treated her unfairly for years. I will be appealing this decision. Danzo and the other council members clearly hadn't anticipated resistance. While an appeal to the fire daimyo was within her rights, the process would be lengthy and filled with bureaucratic delays. It is your prerogative to appeal, Hokage-sama, Koharu said formally, but until then, Naruko must leave the village once her condition improves. Failure to do so would unfortunately place her in a position of being considered outside the village's protection. Tsunade's hands clenched, but she remained composed. And what about Uchiha Sasuke? She asked pointedly. Are you suggesting he gets away without consequence simply because of his name? Before either council could respond, Hiashi Hyuga stood. No, Hokage-sama. As this involves a clan member, the clan council has agreed that the matter falls under our jurisdiction. Sasuke's actions endangered the harmony between clans, and we will address it accordingly. Tsunade nodded as Inuzuka Tsume stood to speak next. We, the clan heads, have reached a consensus. Uchiha Sasuke will be stripped of any special status associated with his clan. He will be treated as a standard citizen, and the Uchiha estate will be repurposed to better serve the village. Any financial assets held under the Uchiha name will be reallocated to benefit all clans equally. This is unfair. Sasuke was manipulated by Naruko and Orochimaru, cried a civilian council member, though his voice faltered under Tsunade's sharp gaze. While I don't agree with your accusation against Naruko, Tsunade replied, her tone even but firm, I acknowledge that Orochimaru's influence, including the seal he placed on Sasuke, played a significant role in Sasuke's actions. As we speak, Jiraiya is ensuring that seal is permanently neutralized. The clan council's ruling stands. The councils grumbled but said no more after Tsunade's fist struck the table with controlled force. If I challenge Tsunade now, Danzo thought carefully, she'll use that opportunity to question the fire daimyo's decision about Naruko and possibly reverse it. I don't have enough solid evidence to defend this without drawing unwanted attention. Danzo had no intention of allowing that to happen. This meeting is now adjourned. I have patients waiting, and for one of them, I must deliver difficult news. The truth about how the village betrayed her loyalty will be heartbreaking, said Tsunade, her voice firm yet sorrowful as she turned to resume her duties, one of which she dreaded deeply. Hospital, several days later. Hey Naruko. How does it feel to complete such a difficult, high-ranking mission? Asked Shikamaru as he entered her hospital room, slightly wincing at the sight of her bandages. Not bad, though the food could use some serious improvement. Why? Thinking of switching places? Naruko joked, causing Shikamaru to raise his hands in mock surrender. As tempting as it sounds to lie around watching the ceiling and daydreaming about clouds, I think I'll pass. You look like you've had quite the time out there, Shikamaru replied, offering a small chuckle before noticing Naruko wince in pain despite her lighthearted tone. How did Sakura take the news? Was she happy? Asked Naruko, curiously and with a noticeably serious expression. Before Shikamaru could respond, the hospital door burst open, and Sakura stormed in with clear frustration in her expression. You! How could you do that to Sasuke-kun? I asked you to bring him back, not to leave him in such rough shape, Sakura yelled, clearly upset, surprising both Shikamaru and Naruko given that Naruko was in even worse condition than Sasuke. I had to fight him, Sakura. If I hadn't, he would have escaped to join Orochimaru. I didn't have a choice, Naruko said softly, though it was clear Sakura wasn't listening. Stop talking. Just stop. You're nothing but a disappointment. I can't stand you, Sakura shouted, pulling her hand back to strike Naruko, only to be stopped as Shikamaru quickly activated his shadow possession jutsu, halting her mid-action. Are you out of your mind? Naruko is in worse condition than Sasuke. She held back and still succeeded in stopping him, Shikamaru said firmly, restraining Sakura and calling for help. I don't care, Sakura exclaimed, trying to resist the jutsu as Naruko attempted to move away, wincing from the pain. You should care, came a calm voice as Gaara entered the room, having heard the commotion. He had arrived after helping the Hokage disperse a group of angry villagers outside. Sakura looked at him with disdain. Perfect. One so-called monster helping another. You two belong together. With that, she turned and left the room in a hurry, throwing one last glare at Naruko before disappearing down the hallway. Ugh. And people wonder why I say that things are always troublesome, Shikamaru muttered as he sank into a chair with a tired sigh, looking at Naruko sympathetically. You don't like being called names, same as me. So why don't you ever speak up? Gaara asked Naruko, who looked at him with weary blue eyes that made the newly appointed Kazekage falter slightly. And say what? If I fight back, people will panic and say the seal is failing. They'd either lock me away or cast me out. You have a defense, Gaara. My seal wasn't made to help control the power, it was meant to contain it. There's a difference, Naruko explained quietly, not caring that Shikamaru was still in the room. Fair point. Get stronger, Naruko. I sense the path ahead is only going to get harder, Gaara said as he turned to leave, offering her one last encouraging look. I'm guessing the power she's referring to has 9 tails and resembles a fox? Shikamaru asked, his voice low and thoughtful. Naruko nodded slowly. You saw it back then, didn't you? The way people looked at me. Why they treated me like I didn't belong, especially on my birthday. It's like they wanted me gone, no matter what I did, Naruko said softly. It's like someone's always watching, waiting for the smallest mistake. Shikamaru shivered at the thought, feeling the weight of Naruko's words settle heavily around them. Troublesome. Just when I think things can't get worse. He muttered. The door opened again, this time revealing Tsunade, her expression visibly somber. I'm sorry, Naruko. I have some very difficult news. The councils, with the Fire Daimyo's support, have decided that you are to be temporarily exiled from the Leaf Village, Tsunade said gently, watching as Naruko's expression shifted from confusion to sorrow and disbelief. What? Why? She succeeded in the mission. How can someone be punished for doing exactly what they were told to do? Shikamaru demanded, jumping to his feet. So that's it? After everything? They just send me away? After everything I've done? Naruko asked quietly. Then, in a rare flash of emotion, she continued, if that's what they want. Then so be it. Let them cling to their perfect image of the Uchiha. I've given enough. I've tried to be enough. It's not all bad, Tsunade said quickly, hoping to soften the blow. The clan heads have taken action. They removed Sasuke's status and revoked any privileges he once held. He's no longer recognized as part of the Uchiha clan, and Jiraiya is working to suppress both the curse seal and his bloodline abilities permanently. Naruko's lips curled into a small, tired smile, not from joy, but from a sense of ironic justice. Finally, someone else faced consequences. Let's see how this village manages anything without me doing all the work now, said Naruko, her voice carrying a tired sarcasm. She had carried the weight of Team 7 on her shoulders, even though Kakashi's reports painted a different picture, one that glorified Sasuke far beyond his actual contributions, especially now that his abilities were not what they used to be. What will you tell the others? Tsunade asked, already anticipating the reactions of many. Some would demand answers, while others, like Sakura, might not feel much at all about his absence. I'll just say goodbye. That's all they really need, Naruko replied, her voice dipping into a soft sadness. Tsunade's expression faltered for a moment, sensing the emotion beneath her words. Well, you've healed enough. Even I can't justify keeping you in the hospital any longer. You're free to go home and prepare to leave, said Tsunade. The healing had gone well, and the energy within her had returned thanks to the 9-tailed fox's regenerative power. Perfect. I bet the moment I step outside, the villagers will have something to say. But if I don't leave right away, they'll complain about that too, said Naruko, climbing out of bed. She changed into the new outfit Tsunade had arranged, black pants and a crimson shirt. It was a much-needed change from her usual orange attire. "Has Kakashi come by to see you?" Tsunade asked curiously, having not spotted the Jounin since Naruko had been admitted. "No. I'm sure he's at the Memorial Stone, probably feeling sorry about how he trained Sasuke. Can you believe he passed me over during the Chunin exams? For Ebisu of all people. He wanted to teach me chakra control, even though I've always had too much chakra to control properly anyway. And the guy didn't even like me. It made everything more difficult than it had to be," said Naruko as she adjusted her sleeves, wincing slightly at a tender muscle. "Humph," Tsunade muttered under her breath, clearly not pleased with how things had been handled. "It's okay, Granny. I've got people outside the village who are willing to help me train properly," Naruko added with a confident smile. Tsunade's stern demeanor softened. "You've got 2 days to leave, Naruko. One of those is today, and most of it's already gone," Tsunade reminded her. "A day and a half? That's more than enough," Naruko said, walking over to the window and pushing it open. "You're not going out the front?" Tsunade asked, raising an eyebrow at her. "Of course not. They're probably waiting to lecture me or start more drama. Why would I give them the satisfaction?" Naruko replied before jumping gracefully out the window to make her way through the village in her own way. People often underestimated her, forgetting she had a technique that could turn the odds in her favor, the shadow clone jutsu. Naruko's apartment. When she arrived at her modest home, she was surprised to see it hadn't been disturbed. She stepped inside cautiously and found Kakashi waiting, his expression unusually serious. Naruko was already prepared. Shadow clones were positioned throughout the village in case things got complicated. "Naruko, I need you to come with me to speak with the Hokage. I'm hoping you'll help convince her not to seal away Sasuke's Sharingan," Kakashi said earnestly, though Naruko's look of disbelief was immediate. "You want me to ask Granny to let him keep that power? After everything?" she said, her tone sharp but controlled. "Sasuke hit me with not 1, but 2 Chidori strikes. And if I remember correctly, you were the only one outside the Uchiha clan who could even teach him that. Why would I help you now, when he's made his choices clear?" Kakashi's face tightened in frustration. "Because he's your teammate, Naruko. I thought you were just stubborn, but maybe I was wrong about you." Naruko's expression changed from surprise to resolute. She stepped closer, her presence powerful. "I've been there for this team more times than I can count. I helped during the wave mission when things got dangerous. I protected Inari and his family. I encouraged the villagers to stand up for themselves. I stopped Gaara from losing control. Meanwhile, Sasuke stood frozen, unsure of what to do. I gave everything to this village, and yet all the recognition goes to him. Why? Because of his name? Because of his abilities? That's not fair, not to me, not to anyone who's worked just as hard." She stepped back, her gaze calm but fierce. "I'm not the one who's let people down, Kakashi. Maybe it's time you thought about who really needs to step up." Kakashi stood in silence, unable to argue. Inside her, the fox stirred slightly, offering a quiet, amused thought. "Nicely said, Kit. Now that's a proper use of my energy." "Well, get used to it, Fox. I'm going to make the people of Konoha miss me so much, they'll wish they'd appreciated me while I was still there," thought Naruko, as she created more shadow clones to help gather her belongings. She noticed Kakashi watching her with his usual calm expression, one visible eye widened in confusion. What are you doing, Naruko?" Kakashi asked hesitantly, seeing the clones packing up and the original Naruko looking quite upset. "You really don't know?" Naruko said with disbelief. "It's honestly disappointing how focused you've been on the Uchiha. You've completely overlooked me, your own student. The decision to banish me came before any judgment about him, and yet you're here trying to defend him. Without even knowing the full story or bothering to ask. I was the one who brought him back, and for that, I was treated like I didn't matter at all." She let out a humorless laugh, then glanced at her clones, who had finished packing, and turned to leave. As she passed Kakashi, she sighed and walked out, shaking her head. Neither Naruko nor Kakashi noticed a quiet observer in the distance. Hidden among the leaves of a tree nearby, a certain Hyuga girl had heard everything through the open window. "Naruko is being sent away? No. That can't be." Hinata thought in shock. Without wasting a moment, she dashed toward the Hokage's office, determined to get answers. Hinata had been overjoyed when Naruko returned safely with Sasuke. The mere fact that she came back alive had filled her heart with happiness. But that happiness was quickly replaced by confusion and worry when she saw an angry crowd try to confront Naruko, only for Gaara to intervene and take both of them to the hospital. Hinata had always seen the kindness in Naruko, even as children, and admired her strength and determination to protect others. Now, after everything, hearing that Naruko was being sent away for completing her mission left Hinata feeling completely heartbroken. It didn't make any sense. And if anyone could explain, it had to be the Hokage. 2 days later. Naruko let out a long sigh as she stood outside the gates of the Hidden Leaf, having said her goodbyes to those who truly mattered. Lee had to be calmed down and temporarily restrained so he wouldn't cause a scene. Now, Naruko was on her own, stepping into the world without the protection of the village behind her. That was fine. It gave her the chance to travel, to learn new techniques, and to grow stronger in her own way. At least I've got you, Fox. You may not have had a choice in this, but if I go down, so do you. So let's work together to get stronger, okay? Thought Naruko, leaping gracefully from branch to branch through the trees, avoiding the roads just in case. Point taken, kid, the nine-tailed fox replied. And I've got my own reasons for getting stronger too. You and I? We'll make a great team. Naruko's thoughts were cut short as a sudden volley of shuriken came flying from the left. She quickly moved behind a tree and peeked out to see the source. A squad of Onbu with the kanji for root stood nearby, and the leader stepped forward, drawing his sword. Uzumaki Naruko, the captain began, by the orders of Danzo, we are here to escort you to him. He has selected you for a special role in his organization to serve the Hidden Leaf in secrecy. Naruko raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. Is that so? She said calmly. Well, you can tell Danzo that I'm not interested. I'll serve the leaf in my own way, free, not hidden in the shadows. As she spoke, she subtly activated a paper bomb and tossed it near the group, causing a controlled blast to create a diversion. She didn't aim to hurt anyone, just to scatter them enough so she could make her escape. With quick footwork, she darted deeper into the forest. The plan worked momentarily, but the Onbu regrouped faster than she expected. They were already in pursuit, launching jutsu attacks as they closed in. We need a plan, the fox spoke again inside her mind. Your body is still recovering. Fighting now could put us at a disadvantage. Naruko narrowed her eyes, calculating her next move. She knew one thing for sure, she wasn't going to give up. I can still feel the sting from that Chidori, thought Naruko as she swiftly avoided a burst of fire followed by a stream of water that smashed into a nearby tree, sending bark flying. Earth style, ground shifting jutsu, called out the root captain, leaping from the trees. He struck the earth, causing the ground to tremble as several trees around Naruko were uprooted and thrown aside. Naruko, her blonde hair whipping in the wind, lost her balance just as she landed on a branch. The sudden shift caused her to fall and slide until she landed near the edge of a steep cliff that dropped into deep, shadowy darkness. As she scrambled to her feet, she noticed Root Shinobi encircling her in a semicircle, cutting off every path but the cliffside. Fox? Quick question. If I fall from here, is there even a small chance I'll make it out of this okay, and maybe not get caught by them? Naruko asked mentally, glancing inward toward the presence of the nine-tailed fox. What kind of question is that? The fox replied with a sharp gaze, clearly unimpressed. Leaping into the unknown is better than giving up, but I won't let you give in to fear. Face them. Stand strong. We'll push through this together. Okay. Got it. Naruko responded quickly. She formed the familiar hand signs and summoned several shadow clones, engaging the root shinobi head-on. Despite being outnumbered, Naruko began turning the tide of the battle. Her strategy of creating coordinated attacks with her clones was starting to overwhelm the enemy. The root captain was knocked back by a powerful Rasengan, slamming into fallen trees behind him. But even in retreat, he managed to toss a tagged explosive that detonated near Naruko's feet, sending her hurtling backward toward the cliff. The explosion dispersed her clones, making substitution impossible. Naruko struggled to use the fox's chakra to grab onto the rocky surface, but the immense energy made it difficult to maintain her grip. As she slid further, the world around her began to blur and fade into darkness. Konoha, shortly after. The moment word spread of Naruko's departure, some in the village threw a celebration, believing their troubles had vanished along with her. However, their joy was short-lived. The next day brought nothing but confusion, frustration, and regret. Before Naruko had left the village, she had cleverly created shadow clones to carry out a series of mischievous tasks, not harmful, but certainly unforgettable. Her clones had spent the night tampering with plumbing systems across homes, shops, and public buildings. Timed just right, These subtle adjustments caused unexpected and rather unpleasant surprises the following morning. Sinks, showers, and toilets all misfired in unusual ways, leading to a chaotic mess no one could have anticipated. But Naruko hadn't stopped there. She had also set up several non-harmful stink bombs and colorful paint traps in buildings that had treated her poorly in the past. The shops that had overcharged her or denied her service now faced a strange but harmless revenge. Bright, hard-to-remove colors stained their walls, and foul smells lingered for days. Cleanup would be a headache, and rebuilding would be delayed due to the village's focus on the ongoing conflict. In her own way, Naruko had left a message, not one of hatred, but of heartfelt honesty. She had spent a lifetime being misunderstood, and now the village had a taste of the discomfort she had quietly endured. It wasn't long ago that Naruko had discreetly obtained financial records from several shops, documents they had hidden away in their safes. She left them on Tsunade's desk with a note, asking her to compare the figures with the Hidden Leaf's official financial reports. Naruko had already reviewed the numbers herself, with some assistance from Kurama, who helped her notice the inconsistencies and questionable transactions. Now, the individuals involved, some of them even members of the civilian council, stood nervously in Tsunade's office. They looked as if they'd been caught sneaking sweets before dinner, stumbling over their words and unable to form complete sentences. A few tried to speak, but what came out was barely coherent, while Shizune stood calmly beside Tsunade, awaiting her decision. Honestly, they would have received a more helpful response from Tonton, even if the pig were half asleep. "I've been reviewing these financial records from your businesses," Tsunade said calmly, though her tone carried unmistakable authority. "They were brought to me by someone I trust deeply, and I've noticed some alarming discrepancies. Your reported numbers don't match our official documents. There's a repeated pattern in your transactions, overcharging for low-quality goods, all to benefit someone who's no longer even in the village. It's clear you were exploiting that situation." She took a deep breath and continued, her expression firm. "I don't know why the third Hokage allowed this to go unnoticed, but perhaps you hid the details well enough that it never reached him. Out of respect for him, I won't pursue the most severe charges. However, I will be charging you with extortion, fraud, and corruption. These are serious offenses, and you'll be answering for them." The group began to plead, hoping to change her mind, but Tsunade's patience had worn thin. "Enough," she said, her voice rising just enough to silence the room. "Anbu, escort them out. Let Aviki handle the interrogations, and let Anko assist as needed. I want the truth, and I want it fast." As the offenders were led away, still hoping for leniency, Shizune shook her head slightly. "It's going to take time to fix the damage left behind when Naruko was forced to leave," Shizune said quietly. "Even now, some villagers speak poorly of her, spreading unfounded blame. There was even an incident at her old apartment. Someone triggered a hidden defense mechanism, likely set up to protect her home, and now a number of people are in the hospital with injuries from the debris." Tsunade's eyes narrowed as she walked to the window, gazing down at the village. Let them have the same level of care Naruko received back then. The same long wait times. The same ineffective treatment. Maybe then they'll begin to understand what she endured. "I've also heard that Gaara isn't pleased," Shizune added. "He may dissolve the alliance, and word is spreading to the other nations. The Wind Daimyo might already be preparing to lodge a complaint, and if more follow, the Fire Daimyo will be forced to explain why a respected shinobi like Naruko was cast out." Tsunade gave a small smirk. Those council members believed they could control the narrative by sending her away. What they didn't count on is that Naruko is admired by people beyond these walls, people with power and influence. If those ties begin to break, the Fire Daimyo will demand answers. She turned her eyes to a familiar shop that had once sold expired food to Naruko. It was now in ruins, its inventory ruined and unsellable. "Oh, and some of those same people want us to send an Anbu squad to deal with Naruko," Shizune said hesitantly. Tsunade sighed and returned to her desk. "The only team I would send is her old comrades, but only after the banishment is officially lifted. Until then, she's no enemy of Konoha in my eyes." And with that, she resumed her paperwork, holding on to the hope that Naruko would one day return, and that the village would be ready to welcome her back. Unknown location, time frame unknown. Naruko slowly opened her eyes, consciousness gradually returning as she found herself surrounded by shadows. She pushed herself up from the cold, metallic surface beneath her, blinking in the dim light. At first, the blonde assumed she was back in her mindscape, like that one time Jiraiya had pushed her off a cliff to awaken the fox's energy, and briefly wondered if the fox had summoned her here again for another serious talk. But Naruko soon realized this was no dream or illusion. She wasn't in her mindscape. She was lying near the bottom of the deep canyon she'd fallen into, nestled on top of what felt like metal. As her eyes adjusted, she noticed the surface beneath her wasn't just random debris, it was a massive metallic structure. Curious and cautious, she explored until she found an entrance leading inside. Whoa! This place is amazing. I've never seen anything like this, Naruko thought, looking around at the strange architecture and the symbols carved into the walls, clearly belonging to a civilization she didn't recognize. I can't believe it. I thought everything from this race had vanished or been hidden away, said Kurama, the fox spirit inside her, its voice filled with surprise as it recognized the structure. You know what this is, Kurama? Naruko asked mentally, sensing the fox nodding inside her. Yes. Long ago, before the elemental nations existed, there was a race of beings from beyond the stars. They were powerful hunters who sought only the most skilled and honorable opponents. They were called the Yautya. They would travel across worlds in search of worthy challenges, much like the way some shinobi seek strong opponents, Kurama explained, eyes scanning the surroundings and noting various tools, armor, and masks. But you said you thought they were all gone. What did you mean? Naruko asked, approaching a glowing device embedded in the wall, curiosity getting the better of her. I meant gone from this world, Kurama clarified. When my kind walked freely across the lands, the Yautya visited often. But once humans began using chakra, especially after the sealing of the 10 tails, the balance shifted. The Yautya realized that this world had become far too unpredictable and dangerous. If ever captured, they would activate powerful self-erasing devices. Eventually, the planet was declared off-limits for future expeditions. Naruko nodded, her eyes now drawn to all the unfamiliar but remarkably well-preserved equipment inside the structure. These tools. They look incredible. Could I actually learn to use them? She asked, awe in her voice. Perhaps. This appears to be one of the last ships to visit before the planet was declared off-limits. The gear here was built to endure endless battles and harsh conditions, so it may still be fully operational, Kurama replied. With cautious excitement, Naruko stepped toward the glowing device on the wall. The moment she got close, the structure shifted. A chair rose from the ground, and metallic arms gently pulled her into place, holding her still. She gasped as another part of the machine extended and secured itself around her head. What did you activate? Kurama asked, alarmed. I don't know. I didn't do anything on purpose. Do you know what this thing is? Naruko thought, trying to remain calm as she felt something entering her body through her arm, some sort of injection. Kurama was silent for a moment, digging through its ancient memories. Then the realization hit. This is a Yautya initiation device. In rare cases, they would choose individuals from other species they deemed worthy to join their ranks. The device introduces Yautya genetic material into the subject, enhancing speed, strength, perception, and other abilities. It also begins transferring knowledge and instincts required to survive as one of them. As Kurama spoke, Naruko felt a rush of information flooding her mind, languages, tactics, technology, and ancient traditions all being imprinted into her memory. Her body tensed from the overwhelming experience. It feels like I'm trying to absorb an entire library all at once, Naruko cried mentally, the device not allowing her to look away or close her eyes. This is only the beginning, Naruko. But if anyone can handle this, it's you, Kurama said quietly, a note of admiration in its voice. Naruko couldn't respond, too focused on enduring the intense process, but deep inside, she was already determined to face whatever came next. Konoha, 3 years later. Tsunade leaned back in her chair, concern evident in her expression as she reviewed the numerous reports from across the elemental nations. Each one spoke of a mysterious figure, rumored to be a powerful and elusive being, causing widespread alarm. What made it all the more unsettling was the lack of clear information. No one had seen the entity clearly, and yet its presence was unmistakable. The stories varied, but the message was the same: someone, or something, had been targeting skilled shinobi across multiple villages, and not even the most elite seemed safe. The reports didn't detail the exact nature of the incidents, but they left enough implication to suggest something dangerous was roaming free. Still, Tsunade made sure to keep the more unsettling details restricted from the general public, especially the children in the academy. No need to spread fear when answers were still being sought. Initially, some suspected it to be the work of a rival shinobi village employing psychological tactics. However, no village had claimed responsibility, and the incidents continued across borders with no discernible pattern. The councils of several villages had urged Tsunade to point fingers to preserve alliances, but she refused to act without solid evidence. Even experienced missing nin were among those reported lost, which was alarming. Villages had begun analyzing chakra traces from the scenes, but with only fragments to go on, progress was slow. Iwagakure had lost dozens of shinobi ranging from Chonin to Anbu. Kumagakure faced similar losses. Konoha had suffered more than both combined. Curiously, Sunagakure had experienced the fewest incidents. This led some to suspect their leader, the Kazekage. However, Gaara, the Kazekage himself, had recently lost a dear advisor, his former mentor Baki, who had played a critical role during the Chonin exams years prior. The loss deeply affected Gaara, who tasked his siblings with investigating the matter thoroughly. Even Jiraiya, using his extensive network of informants, had come up empty-handed. Several of his contacts had vanished while pursuing leads, which was rare. This mysterious figure even drew the cautious attention of the Akatsuki, who reportedly attempted to locate and perhaps recruit the individual following Orochimaru's departure. They, too, had failed. The figure had since been listed in the bingo book as an S-class threat, with a strict avoid at all costs advisory. The only consistent description mentioned fleeting red eyes that glowed momentarily in the dark, barely visible, yet unforgettable. Only one known survivor had come forward, an Iwagakure shinobi who had managed to escape an encounter. He arrived at Konoha's gates injured and panicked, speaking of what he had seen with visible fear in his eyes. This individual, once known as Iwa's boulder defender, had immediately been taken to the hospital, where Tsunade herself treated him. Flashback, 3 days ago. Please. Don't send me back out there. Please, I'm begging you, the Iwa shinobi pleaded, restrained gently on the hospital bed for his own safety. He had been administered a sedative to help calm his nerves. We won't, Tsunade said softly, her tone calm and reassuring. But we need to understand what happened. Can you tell us who or what did this? The man's eyes darted to the window, full of dread. It wasn't human. It was like a phantom. It moved like a shadow, and it collected things from shinobi. As if we were prizes in a game. Tsunade kept her expression steady as she listened. She didn't need to press for details, the man's distress was real, and pushing him would do more harm than good. He was sweating heavily, clearly shaken, glancing nervously at every shadow in the room. Please, he whispered again, don't send me back. I saw those red eyes. Just for a second. But I know it was looking right at me. Shh. You're safe here, Tsunade said, gently adjusting the sedative dosage. No one can reach you while you're under our protection. I'll assign my most trusted Anbu to guard your room. You have my word. She watched him slowly drift into sleep before turning to the two masked Anbu at the door. Be alert. He's the only person to return from an encounter, and we need to learn everything we can. Inoiki will assist with a memory scan soon. Until then, no one gets in or out without clearance. The two Anbu nodded silently, understanding the gravity of the situation. Tsunade left the room with a thoughtful frown, the weight of uncertainty heavy on her shoulders. Who, or what, was behind this? Hopefully, we can bring this individual to justice and use it as leverage to convince the fire daimyo to lift Naruko's banishment from the leaf, Tsunade muttered to herself, wishing the spirited blonde was here now, playfully calling her granny as she used to. After news of Naruko's banishment spread, letters poured in from every corner of the continent, from people she had touched with her kindness and determination. Citizens and leaders alike demanded an explanation from the fire daimyo and Tsunade herself. In her report, the Hokage placed the majority of the responsibility on the two village councils and, to a lesser extent, the fire daimyo, who had agreed to the decision without informing her until it had already been finalized. The decision sparked widespread discontent, and the fire daimyo soon found his mailbox flooded with messages expressing disappointment, and in some cases, warning of serious diplomatic consequences if a valid reason wasn't provided. In response, the fire daimyo shared the list of reasons the councils had given for Naruko's exile, hoping to calm the uproar. However, it had the opposite effect, the responses only grew louder, and many questioned the fairness of the claims. Determined to uncover the truth, the fire daimyo launched an official inquiry. The councils tried to keep the original reasons hidden under an outdated law created by the third Hokage, which they had already gone against in secret. Tsunade insisted that the truth could and should be revealed, either by her or by Naruko herself. Despite resistance, the fire daimyo demanded an explanation, as tensions with other nations were rising. Tsunade shared the full story. She explained the tragedy of the Nine Tails attack, how Naruko had been chosen as its vessel by the fourth Hokage, and that his final wish was for the village to honor and support her as a hero. But that wish had been ignored. The fire daimyo was visibly troubled upon hearing the truth. When he asked why the fourth's request had never been upheld, no one, not the councils, the clan heads, or even Tsunade, could look him in the eye to answer. Tsunade had to use every bit of wisdom her mentor had taught her to convince the fire daimyo not to take drastic action against the village. Ultimately, the daimyo chose not to immediately reverse Naruko's banishment, reasoning that time away from the leaf might give her space to grow freely, strengthen her skills, and allow for a more positive return in the future. He assured that a full pardon would be granted and the banishment formally lifted at the appropriate time. However, he did not overlook the harm done to Naruko. The daimyo ordered that everyone responsible for mistreating her be held accountable in public view. Disciplinary actions were taken, and assets from those individuals were redistributed to ensure Naruko had the support and resources she needed, should she choose to return one day. The villagers affected faced consequences, but it was made clear this was not about revenge, it was about justice and restoration. Even their families felt the impact, with many needing to rebuild and re-establish themselves through honest effort. Regarding the Uchiha situation, the councils attempted to request the unlocking of Sasuke's abilities through Jiraiya's intervention, but the fire daimyo refused. Instead, he ordered Sasuke be placed under strict supervision within the village until a time he would personally determine. Although some in the village were unhappy, they respected the daimyo's authority and understood the importance of maintaining peace. Suddenly, a Chunin rushed into Tsunade's office. "Hokage-sama. Please come quickly. The guest from Iwa is missing, and his Anbu guards have been found unconscious. Witnesses believe it may be connected to the individual he mentioned earlier," the young shinobi reported with urgency. "What? Alert the Anbu immediately. Lock down the village, I won't allow anyone to slip past our defenses," Tsunade commanded, fully focused on protecting her village. Konoha Hospital, moments ago. The former Iwa shinobi once recognized as the boulder destroyer slowly opened his eyes, finding himself lying in a hospital bed. As he adjusted to the brightness and looked around the room, the memories of his last mission began to resurface. It had started as a routine B-ranked assignment, an investigation into the disappearance of a squad consisting of 2 Chunin and 3 Jounin. At first, his team found no clues, but then they stumbled upon signs of a confrontation. When the team split up to search further, they discovered something that deeply unsettled them and would remain etched in his mind forever. It had been a trap. The signs had led them right into an ambush. One of his closest comrades was struck down in front of him in an instant. The mission, which was supposed to be simple reconnaissance, turned into something much more dangerous. Now, as he turned toward the hospital window, he noticed something peculiar. The window had been shut before he was sedated, so who had opened it? A low growling noise interrupted his thoughts, followed by a brief flash of glowing red eyes. A voice echoed in a distorted version of his own, the figure who hunts shinobi. "Please. Show some compassion," he murmured, as the hospital monitoring systems began to beep rapidly. Fear overtook him. Outside, Anbu members heard the alert and rushed into the room. What they saw startled them, a mysterious figure that had long been whispered about. The Anbu attempted to engage but were quickly overwhelmed by a sudden, thunderous burst of chakra from strange shoulder-mounted devices. The mysterious presence turned back toward the patient, drawing closer. When nurses finally arrived, the Anbu were unconscious, and the patient was missing. Only a faint trail leading to the window gave any clue as to what had occurred. Just outside the leaf, present time. "Do you see anything, Neji?" Hinata whispered into her earpiece, activating her Byakugan as she scanned the dense woods around her. "Not in this area, Hinata-sama. Please stay alert. If this presence is what Hokage-sama believes it to be, it could be dangerous," replied Neji calmly. Over the past 3 years, he had done everything possible to support Hinata and become the caring cousin she could depend on. Still, Neji had noticed moments when Hinata seemed deeply saddened, particularly when she spoke of Naruko. There were even nights when he thought he heard her quietly crying in her room. He remembered the day she visited him at the hospital after the mission to retrieve Sasuke, her tears flowing as she repeatedly said, "It's not fair. They made her leave. They sent Naruko away from the leaf." Hinata had confided in him about how she had gone to Tsunade for answers after overhearing Naruko talk with Kakashi about her banishment and how even the Hokage couldn't prevent it. Neji, still recovering from his injuries at the time, could only imagine what he might have done if he had been well. But now, hearing from the Hokage that Naruko's banishment might soon be lifted, if her unique skills were needed for the village's safety, brought a spark of hope to both cousins. "I'll be careful, Neji. I need to be, especially if I want to see Naruko-chan again," Hinata said with quiet resolve. She knew the mission they were on was just a cover to find and bring Naruko back home, But that didn't matter. Any chance to reunite with her was enough. Suddenly, movement to the right caught her eye. "Neji, I think I spotted something. Head east from your location and meet me there," she said, quickly leaping between trees. But when she reached the spot, nothing was there. "I'm on my way, Hinata-sama. I'll be there in 5 minutes, Neji responded, picking up speed. While she waited, Hinata scanned the area again with her Byakugan, wondering if this so-called phantom could somehow avoid detection even from her clan's powerful vision. Her thoughts were interrupted when a flurry of kunai came flying from the left. With grace and precision, Hinata drew her own weapon and deflected the projectiles. "Impressive. Your clan's abilities are clearly more than legend. You saw my attack and responded without hesitation. Kumo will certainly reward me well for someone like you," said a shadowy figure stepping forward, revealing none other than Mizuki in rogue shinobi attire. You betrayed the leaf, and Naruko-chan brought you to justice. How did you escape?" Hinata asked, shifting into her gentle fist stance, ready for anything. Mizuki simply smiled, a glint of mischief in his eyes, as the confrontation began. "You can thank my former mentor, Orochimaru, for that. After the attack on the Leaf Village years ago, Konoha's defenses were significantly weakened. And with that mysterious figure causing disturbances across the land, the ranks are even more strained than ever. The guards started overlooking important details, which gave me the opportunity to escape. A few others got out in the chaos as well to cover my tracks," said Mizuki, observing the determined expression on the girl's face as she narrowed her eyes at him. He then drew a sword he had retrieved from his old hideout. "I won't let you succeed," Hinata said calmly, steadying her stance as Mizuki responded with a scowl filled with disdain. "We'll see if you can stop me. I doubt it, judging by what I remember from your time at the academy. Did the Hokage ever tell you that the spirit of the nine-tailed fox was sealed inside that blonde girl, Naruko, after she was forced to leave?" "Somehow I doubt it," Mizuki said, watching Hinata's shocked reaction before attempting to take advantage of the distraction. Hinata quickly recovered, using her kunai to block Mizuki's sword, combining her agility with her unique gentle fist technique. For a moment, she held her ground. However, Mizuki's sword was sharper than her weapon, and her kunai snapped early in the fight. She barely avoided injury before Mizuki landed a powerful kick that knocked her from the trees and slammed her into the ground, leaving her dazed. "I can't lose now. If I give up here, everything I've worked for would be for nothing. I have to keep going," Hinata thought, trying to rise to her feet, only for Mizuki to send her crashing into a tree with another hard blow. "I'm sure the Raikage has certain expectations for you, but I doubt they'd mind if I handed them you, and a surprise," Mizuki said darkly, watching her weakened form struggle to resist. "Naruko. I wish you were here. No matter what happens, my heart will always belong to you," Hinata thought, her eyes filled with resolve as she looked up at Mizuki, refusing to be afraid. "Any final words before your story ends, Hyuga girl?" Mizuki said with a twisted grin as he slowly approached her. "I hope you realize what you've become. And change before it's too late," Hinata said firmly, standing her ground. Suddenly, Mizuki was interrupted as a sharp weapon burst through his side, and a towering figure appeared behind him. "Enough," came a voice, calm and firm, as Mizuki was lifted off the ground and cast aside effortlessly by the mysterious newcomer. Hinata watched in stunned silence, her eyes wide at the sudden rescue. Though she had never seen the figure before, something about them felt oddly familiar. Mizuki, now severely weakened, shouted desperately. "You don't know who you're dealing with. I served Orochimaru, he won't stand for this. He'll find you and make you pay," Mizuki cried, but the figure remained unfazed. With quiet precision, they struck again and brought Mizuki's assault to an end. The stranger, masked and dressed in armor unlike anything Hinata had seen, stepped toward her. He was tall, well over 6.5 feet, with a muscular build. His attire combined fishnet underlayers and sleek metallic plating. A strange blade extended from his right wrist, and his mask was marked with whisker-like designs and a single symbol at the forehead. She couldn't see his face, only sense his presence. "Hey, are you going to hurt me?" Hinata asked cautiously, trying to memorize every detail about him. The figure tilted his head slightly, as if pondering her question. Before he could respond, a blur of movement caught their attention. Neji emerged, preparing to strike the figure with his gentle fist technique. The masked stranger evaded him with incredible agility, leaping gracefully into the trees. His movements were almost impossible to believe for someone of his size. Neji quickly turned to guard Hinata, ready to defend her if needed. "You've grown. Both of you," the stranger said softly, before disappearing into the shadows using a cloaking device. "Hinata-sama, are you alright?" Neji asked as he checked the surroundings and helped her to her feet, already sensing their team was approaching. "Yes, Neji. And you may not believe this, but that masked figure saved me," Hinata said, gesturing to Mizuki's unconscious form and Neji's shocked expression. "Did anything else happen?" he asked, noting her injuries and concern in her eyes. "No. Mizuki attacked. I tried to fight back but was overwhelmed. Before he could do something terrible, the masked one appeared and stopped him," Hinata said truthfully, choosing not to mention Mizuki's words about the nine-tailed fox and Naruko. That wasn't her secret to share. Neji gave a small nod, supporting her as they walked back toward the village. Their teammates arrived shortly after, and all the while, the same question echoed in their minds. Who was that mysterious figure roaming the elemental nations? Dear YouTube family, that's all for today. If you enjoyed the content, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more exciting updates. Thank you for your support. Warm regards. 6 Path Weeb.